Get there. All right. Just before we took your quiz, the very last thing that we learned before we took your quiz was how to convert vertex form to standard form. And that was where you were taking, you were just simplifying. You were taking the parentheses and squaring it, expanding it to its FOIL, and then moving everything to the one side so that y was by itself. Does that ring a bell? It was yesterday. Yes, that was a long time ago. So that was converting vertex form to standard form. And remember, for that, there's no trick, there's no formula. It's just working it out and making it look pretty. Okay? Today we're going backwards. Today we're starting with standard form. So think about what one of those standard form equations looks like the y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, and converting that back to vertex form. Okay, so that's what this is talking about. So just some background info. This you already know, but what's that point called? Okay, this is called a parabola. This point is called the vertex, right?
Yes.
And what letters do we use for the vertex? H and K. And so if I gave you an equation and you were able to find the vertex from that equation, would you then be able to write it in vertex form? If you had H and K, you would just be able to plug those numbers in, just like you were doing before. I'm going to turn that light off in front.
But don't you need like the A or something?
Yes, you do need A also, and we'll talk about where you get A from. No.
Yeah. Oh.
Everybody is asleep. Is what will happen. Okay. So this right here is what standard form looks like. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, and remember a, b, and c are numbers. So in this example, what's A? 3. What's B? And C? Good. Okay, that's sort of your first step, is finding A, B, and C. Okay, and I shouldn't even say first step. That's just the first thing you should look for is A, B, and C. Your first step is to figure out what H is. And there is a little formula that helps you find H. That's right here. H equals negative B over 2A. Okay, and that B and that A are talking about these numbers here. So this formula will tell you what H is given an equation in standard form. So I would say negative B would be negative 12 over 2 times A, that's 2 times 3. What's that going to equal? Negative 2. Okay. So H is negative 2. I just found the H from my vertex. Okay, so that's step 1. Step 1, find H. It's that right there. A word of caution to you real quick. Hopefully you looked at that and did that in your head. Okay, negative 12 divided by 6 would be negative 2. But there's going to be some that involve like decimals or bigger numbers, things that you can't necessarily do in your head. When you type this into your calculator, if you type this, negative 12 divided by 2 times 3, you will not get the right answer.
What if you did find out over 6?
Okay, yes. Yes, you could just type in negative 12 over 6. That would work. What's wrong with this?
Multiplying. Oh, yeah, it multiplies first.
Okay, it's not going to multiply first. It's going to go in order. But what this would do is this would take negative 12 divided by 2. It would get that answer, and then multiply that answer by 3. Yeah, that's not what you want it to do. Yeah. You want it to do the 2 and the 3 together. Okay? So if you're going to type it into your calculator, if you can't do it in your head, I recommend either you do what Wyatt said, like you figure out what this multiplication would be and then just type it in as a single number, or you have to remember to put parentheses around that bottom part. Okay? Because otherwise you're going to get the wrong number for H. And if you get the wrong number for H, you're going to get the wrong number for K, and then you would have the wrong equation. Questions on finding H?
Is it like the same formula every time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, negative B over 2A is the formula to find H. Now we're going to find K. And to find K, we're going to take what we found for H and just plug it back into this original equation for X. So do you see that what I've given you here is basically that equation, but I put blanks in for X? You're taking that negative 2 and putting it in right here. Negative 2, negative 2. So all that's really doing is putting a negative 2 in for x. 3 times negative 2 squared plus 12 times negative 2 minus 5. Okay, go ahead, work that out. Type it in, see what you get. Isaac, you got it? Negative 17 is it.
I got 1, 3, 2.
Make sure you made your 2 negative, especially where you put it with the 12. And then, I'm trying to think of what else might have made that mistake. I recommend that you type it all in one shot. Okay, that you type in like this entire thing all at one time. Because otherwise you might make mistakes with order of operations. If you type it out all at once, your calculator will figure that part out for you. The one thing I do want to caution you about is when you're squaring a negative number, you must put the number in parentheses. Like when you're doing negative 2 squared, that negative 2 must be in parentheses. I've said to my students every year that if you walk out of here remembering one thing that you learned in Algebra 1, I need it to be that you must put negative numbers in parentheses when you square them, or when you raise them to any power. Okay, because otherwise you get the wrong answer. And that's the number one mistake I still see with problems like this one, is people forgetting when they type it into their calculator that negative 2 needs to be in parentheses. Okay. Garrett, after you redid it, were you able to get negative 17?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did? Okay.
Put negative 5 instead of -5.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it, because that is telling your calculator to multiply by negative 5. I know it seems weird, but yeah, the negative and the minus are 2 different things on your calculator. Okay, so now that I have h, now that I have k, what's my vertex? Yeah, negative 2, negative 17. I just found my vertex. Not bad, right? And I know that process seemed like it took a long time because I like to talk a lot, but if you're just doing it by yourself, that's going to fly by. That's not going to take very long at all. Then if I asked you to put that in vertex form, and you have to pay attention to what the question's asking, because sometimes the question just says, what is the vertex? And sometimes it says, write it in vertex form. If it asks you to write it in vertex form, you've got a vertex here. This is h, this is k. What's the only other number we need? Gabe mentioned it earlier. A. Look up here. Don't we have an A? That A is going to stay exactly the same. Okay, so whatever the A value was up here, that's going to be the same A value down here. So I would put in negative 17 for K, because that's what I just found for K. For A, I'm going to put in a 3. And for H, I'm going to put in a negative 2. So this would end up saying, Y what if I'm doing minus negative 17? Yeah, that's going to be a plus, equals 3 parentheses x plus 2 squared. That's it. Nope. Nope, because it asks for vertex form, which is this. The only other thing you could simplify it to is you could simplify it to standard form, which is what we started with at the beginning. So I wouldn't ask you to do all of that and then put it back in standard form. Okay? Good? Let's try a couple that aren't so spelled out for you on the back here. 3 examples. Now notice the directions here just say find the vertex. So all we have to do is find h and k. We don't have to write the equation for this one. How do I find h again? Okay, negative b over 2a. What's my b value? Okay, my b value right now is negative 4. And my formula says to make that negative. So what's going to happen? Positive, yeah. Positive 4 over 2 times, what's a here? Okay, your a value is always a number. A, b, and c are always numbers, no x's. It would be 1, yep, because there's a 1 in front of that x squared. Okay, 4 over 2 times 1. What does that equal? 2. So h is 2. Do you remember what to do with the h now? To find k? Yeah, so just go back to my original equation. And I always put my numbers in parentheses just to get myself in that habit of doing it when I have the negative numbers. So 2 squared minus 4 times 2 plus 1. I think I get negative 3. Is that right? So my vertex would be 2, negative 3. Good? Okay, the next two say to write it in vertex form, which means I'm going to follow the exact same steps and find the vertex, and then I'll take the vertex and plug it into vertex form. Okay? So, step 1, find h, which is negative b over 2a. My b value right now is negative 8. So what am I going to put in? Positive 8. Yep, because it says to do negative b. Negative 8 is the same as positive 8. And that's over 2 times negative 2 is my a value. What does that equal? Negative 2. Anybody not get negative 2? Okay, so my h value is negative 2. My k value, I'm going to plug that negative 2 back in for x up here. So negative 2 times negative 2 squared minus 8 times negative 2 plus 1. Nine. Do we get 9? Yep, and then this one we're going to write in vertex form. So we're going to say y should be y minus k. So what am I putting? Minus 9, because we just found that our k value was 9, equals, what's our a value? Negative 2. And then x what? Plus 2, because it would be minus negative 2 from up here, squared. And that's your final answer. Good with that? Okay, let's try one more, because there's something a little tricky about this third one. Start with h, negative b over 2a. What's my b value here? Okay, my b value is negative 1. So I'm going to put in positive 1, because negative 1 is positive 1, over 2 times 4, which does give you a fraction. It gives you 1 over 8. I'm okay with these being decimals for your vertex. So 1/8, I believe, is 0.125. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, I always mix those up. So 0.125. That's okay. Don't let the fact that it's a decimal freak you out. You are going to have some decimals in these. And then find k. So I would do 4 times 0.125 squared minus 0.125 minus 3. And I'm going to need your help with that one. Okay. Negative 0.0625. Do we agree with that? I'm going to get something different.
Oh,
Negative 3 point. Okay, so I got that right. That's written right now. Okay. So now, vertex form would be y what? Plus 3.0625 equals, my a value up here was 4, and then parentheses x. What goes with the x? Yep, 0.125, my H value. Squared. Vertex form. How do you feel about that? No? What part did I lose you on? Oh, come on. 3 steps. You'll be fine. Okay.